Good morning, Greg.
Good morning, David. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
I
I just gotta.
I hear myself.
You hear yourself?
Hmm.
I've got my video muted up there. Do you have a video playing in the background, possibly?
I don't want to talk about it,
Okay. All right.
but I still hear you.
You still hear
Are you
me?
sending audio in spite?
Oh, how
Yeah,
about now?
professional YouTubers here, people. Don't worry about it.
Well,
Send me prof-
back chat. The back channel is still on. Sorry.
yeah. Like the audio. I mean, frankly, we're lucky to have audio sometimes.
You're not wrong.
But hey, it only took us 30 seconds to figure out how to push a mute button. Good morning, Steak. Good morning, Dom. So I'm going to push a button, and Greg's going to do the thing he likes to do at the start of the stream.
You bet. So we want to thank these wonderful people. Thank Helch up at the tree support level and everyone else on this list. Without you guys, we can't do the stuff we do. So we appreciate it. And that's why we do things like this Marlin stream we've been doing, because we want to make sure that you guys get some good content and hopefully learn something along the way. So thanks, everyone. If you want to join us, you could join us in our Discord if you're a Patreon member. And we have a great community in Discord. And then if you want to join, you can go to patreon.com/3dmakeit and join us there.
I like it.
Yeah.
Professional. We need to get your Radiocaster booming effect on for that one, you know?
And thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. There's a few things housekeeping wise that we wanted to mention just before the stream starts. And one is, I think you guys know, but if you
A die cut sticker. Uh-oh. I'm sure he just didn't add me to this
yeah,
share.
it's just a thing.
Yeah.
There, I'm back. Hold on.
Hello. How about now?
Yeah, you should be
Steak,
there.
can you
Yeah,
hear?
there. I think we got you. Now I'm pitching. Yes, there we go. Sorry, guys. I got a new desk, which means my old mic setup is still sitting in a pile in the corner. And I haven't hooked it up yet, so I was using a different setup, and I forgot to get them all the way through. But yeah, we have a store. If you want to check it out, it's store.3dmakeit.ca. But there's some cool stuff in there. We actually own a few of the eccentric shirts ourselves. And I think we were talking about getting the hats, but
Yeah.
you know,
I don't know. I don't know if we'll get these hats or not. I'm talking with a place in town here too.
Yeah, we got some local source stuff for us too. But
Yeah.
so we do have a store. We're not pressuring you, by the way. We're just mentioning it now. There. So that's one housekeeping thing. There's another housekeeping thing, and this requires all of your help. So if you're watching this after the stream, or if you're watching right now, hello, welcome to the stream. In Canada, something's changed drastically over the last week for YouTubers in Canada, and that's Bill C-11 passed. You don't have to worry about it. It's a government bill that passed, but basically it's going to make it harder for us to reach audiences outside of our country. And that's in concert with a few changes coming down from like algorithm stuff to the actual bill. So what we need you guys to do is, if you love us and you like watching what we're doing and you like hanging out and you like the videos and the stuff that we produce, if you can share the content a lot, that would help greatly. I mean, that's a general statement too, but with the new bill, we will lose access to our international
Yeah, we don't know how the algorithm is going to be cut us out with this new C11. Like it may not be shared with the YouTube algorithm anymore and stuff. Like we just don't know exactly
Yeah.
how YouTube's
Well,
going to respond to this
yeah.
government change.
There's definitely posturing between the YouTube as a company and the government of Canada as an entity, where they were like, well, if you do this, we're gonna make it so that it's harder for this XYZ, and then they're like, whatever. And so, like, we're still waiting to see the
They,
total fallout,
yeah.
but the answer
So
is,
Stig was asking why would they make it harder? Well, they, in their great wisdom, feel that Canadian content must be promoted over other content, and so they want to treat anyone who makes Canadian content or content from Canada Canadian content, whether it is Canadian content or not. Whereas they really should like mark like actual Canadian TV productions and movie productions as Canadian content and leave like streaming alone, in my
yeah.
opinion. But
So it's interesting because, like, and I'm sure other countries have such a governing body. Canada's is called the CRTC, and it shows you how old this thing is because it's the Canadian Radio and
in
Television.
television,
So, like,
yeah,
it was designed before, and we had this net neutrality time period from like 1997 until relatively recently. But yeah, like basically in Canada, they try to make sure that Canadian content is at least, I think it's 35% of the content
yeah,
you see on TV and hear on the radio, which in theory sounds great. And on YouTube and other streaming services, so Dominic has his Rumble an option, and no, this is platform wide. So any Canadian content creator and any streaming platform that operates content creators in the country will have this new rule applied to them. So we're still waiting to source it out, but
yeah,
we
yeah. We
we
don't really know if it's going to affect the little guys like us, or if it's going to like because it could. I mean, it definitely the hacksmiths of the world and stuff that have millions of
yeah.
that could like half their revenue.
Yeah, so like we're not
Halving zero
yeah. It's
doesn't really
zero,
make a
yeah.
difference.
You're like you guys know us. We're not in this for anything but the information dissemination, and we enjoy doing it. So that's why we do this. So this isn't our vocation, but yeah, if you're one of the bigger guys, and I've been to a few conference sessions and conferences with this before it came, and lots of people weren't even thinking it was going to happen. Um, but net neutrality's gone in Canada. It only took one bill. Yay! So that's our opening pitch. So again, like, share, subscribe. It really helps us out now more than ever.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you can share us on your popular forums, because we can't share ourselves because all the forums
like
have
banning
self promotion, and yeah.
Yeah.
We got banned from Reddit for answering a question just because of our logo. It was on our name, and I'm like, what the heck? We were just helping, but that's a side topic. So we're if you haven't caught the name of the stream, we're going to finish up our journey with Marlin today. We had one thing lingering, and Greg added one more thing. So there's two things. And then we're going to get on to Clipper. And if you guys were hanging out in Discord this week, I think it was Dominic. Just going to read quick. Yep, it was Dominic. He's like, hey, you should do Raspberry Pi show off. And then I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So hopefully we can get these few different SBCs, and then we can test them with Clipper and just see how they work. With Clipper and Octoprint, with Clipper and Octoprint with Marlin. But like, hopefully we can roll those into the Clipper side of things too. So.
Speaking of Clipper, did you see that Raise 3D has switched to Clipper as an option for their Raise 3D?
I did. It
printer?
makes sense.
And it apparently, like, was it 3D Printing Nerd did a little showdown showing off
Mm-hmm.
different prints, and one of the prints saved a couple days of printing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like, wow.
Well, like the movement again, it's like the movement in Clipper versus Marlin is different. The rendering is different, right?
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see those things, and it's kind of like the difference in slicers too, right? Like
Yeah.
if you slice one thing in Prusa and one thing in Cura, you'll
So
get
so
different
the other
times.
thing we wanted to bring up is we probably won't do Clipper this week, and we probably won't do it next week, because next week is most likely going to be our Patreon stream.
Yep.
And then the week after, we are going to be in Calgary.
I think that's that week.
So
Yep.
yeah, so the week after, we may or may not have a live stream on the Sunday.
Yeah, we
So,
might
so
try to do something maybe while we're in Calgary off of our phones.
yeah,
I
we
don't know,
might
maybe.
like record some stuff with our iPhones and stuff,
Yep.
and chat with a few people, and
But
maybe
we'll be at Maker
yeah,
Fair.
yeah.
I think we've decided to as well attend Calgary Maker Fair as guests, not like a booth
Yeah,
this year.
we're not gonna have a booth, so
S-
we will do a meetup of some sort. So, but we'll talk about that maybe on our Patreon stream,
Yeah,
and because we'll, like, by then we'll have a little more details on
Yeah.
on where we're gonna go, whether we're just gonna stop at a restaurant nearby or something, and
something. Yeah,
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 we'll figure it out. I mean, if no one shows up, David and I will have a nice meal.
yeah.
If some of you show up, then we'll have a nice meal and a nice conversation.
So we look forward to it, for sure. Now, I'm gonna go back to our. Once I find the button, I'm gonna go back to our screen here. So you've seen this before. This is our Marlin checklist, and we've been kind
It
of
is.
running our Marlin off of that. And if you've been keeping tally, we've finished everything over here up to advanced pause, and we've configured everything over here up to ABL and screens. So today, this might be a shocker. We're going to go through auto bed leveling and screens and the BL touch, and Greg's going to do that stuff. So I'm going to switch over.
Mixed in there is regular tramming and stuff.
Yes,
So, yeah.
the tram. But yeah, so I'm going to switch to Greg's screen share, and then here we go.
Here we are. We're back into our Marlin. Again, the files that we're using, the numbers on the one side may or may not match your Marlin files, depending on when you are watching this video. But if you're following along, hopefully they're pretty darn close.
This is Marlin 2.1.2, to be clear.
Yeah. So, and but it's one of those things. It does change, but there's a number of different probe functions that you can set. So you can have, and they're all detailed here, really, really good. Like probe manually, you can set that. You can do fixed mount probe, and they have a little description about these. Probe as a nozzle, so if you have that set up, you can probe. There's a number of different stuff. I personally have a BL touch, so I'm going to just comment that, and boom, that enables all the BL touch features. So it's very simple for that.
The BL touch too, just to throw in there, I mean, that covers 3D touches, CR touches, and any kind of servo that looks like the BL touch, it covers that.
Yes. Yeah, and we've actually had quite a bit of exposure in the last couple weeks to the CR touch, and I think it works pretty good, I gotta say. So if you are so inclined and you get like a Neo or something that has the CR touch on it, just uncommenting the BL touch here will allow you to utilize that in your firmware. So, and there's different other probes. There's the touch MI probe. and whatnot. So there's a number of different. There's a servo, or solenoid. There's a number of them. There's as many different types of probes, whether it's capacitive, whether it's something on a servo that drops something down. There's so many, right? So, and so many different settings. So, sensorless probing is another one, but we're not going to use those. We're going to just stick with our regular stuff. Now, if you don't have a probe and you haven't uncommented that, the big thing is if you go. I'm just going to show you that quickly. I'll just ignore this and go down to tramming. Let me just find it. Control. There. So if you do not have that, you could turn on this LCD bed leveling. Which is kind of nice because then you can just on your LCD turn it on. And then you want bed leveling on, and then tramming here. So the LCD tramming is really nice because when you turn on LCD tramming, it allows you to, so you go to 0, you have your either your business card or a piece of paper, and you're gonna tram your printer. Instead of disabling your steppers and moving your head around, you can use this and it will go to 4 points on your printer. Well, the nice thing about, I'm just going to get rid of this so it highlights that. You can actually also include the center, which is one thing I recommend, because you can do all the 4 corners and then it'll then go to the center, and then you can continue around again, and you can continue just to refine your bed settings, because it'll move the head basically in the corners, and it tells you where it's going to do 30 by 30, 30 by 30, 30 by 30. So that's just off the edge. If you want to adjust that, you can just adjust it here. So if you want it a little further in, let's say you want it right over your screw and spring, for example, you can figure out if it's 25, you would change these to 25 and then, or whatever. So because every bed is slightly different, but if you're on your standard ender or whatnot, that should be fine. So that's kind of nice to have those features because having the ability to tram and do leveling is really a nice thing. I always turn that on. Now, I do not turn on bed tramming with probe, because if you want to get the nozzle set right and your nozzle offset, you don't want to use your probe for tramming. So I do not define that, because I want tramming to be with my nozzle, not my probe. What about you, David? What do you feel with that? I don't want tramming with my probe. I want tramming with my nozzle.
Yeah, I agree. And like we kind of we kind of touched those a little bit when we were working on the new enders, right? Like dragging it down, and that was an interesting workaround session there. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I always want to tram with my nozzle to the bed, not the probe.
Yeah. And tramming is the correct term. It's not, we're not leveling the bed. We are making the bed parallel with the nozzle and in relation to the X gantry, right? So everyone says, oh, you have to level your bed. Yes, that's another way we refer to it as, but it is tramming. It's, you've got, if on the enders, you got 4 points of movement on your bed. On other beds, sometimes they have 3 points of movement, and that changes the tilt. So you adjust if you do the back right corner, your front left corner, like if you go down on the back right corner, the front left corner is going to go up. So it's like kitty corner adjustment. So you've just got to remember that that your tramming is adjusting the whole bed and getting it as flat as you can be. So, but adding this define LCD bed tramming, assuming you have a LCD screen, is really handy to have on your screen.
Yeah, and Stig makes the point it should be a menu option, so you can use both probe and nozzle. The probe for coarse adjustment and the nozzle for fine tuning.
So, and we'll get to that. So you can't toggle this back and forth, but it would be nice if they made it so you could toggle it. But when creating your bed mesh, so using this for tramming, and then we'll go into that in a sec here with your mesh bed leveling, because that will do that. So I'm just going to go all the way back up here. Hold on. All right. So we turned on our probing. We said BL touch right here somewhere there. So we enabled the BL touch here. And then the next thing you need to do is, depending on whether you're using the stock probe or any probe you're doing, there's a great instructions right here of the nozzle to probe offset. So that some people have a hard time wrapping their head around when they first hear about it, but it's pretty straightforward. You're in the BL touches case, when the pin drops, the pin is going to be lower than your nozzle. Okay, so it's actually going to go into the negative in relation to your nozzle, because if the pin was dropped, it could actually hit your model, for example, when you're printing. And there's cases where it's happened to myself and David, where the pin for some reason randomly dropped and it did hit our model. So that can happen. Other probes, they don't have something that drops, but their field that they read from, so if it's an inductive probe, reaches further down below the nozzle again.
Yep.
So you need
Dig mentioned too that he has had a comment. He doesn't have a probe, so he uses baby stepping with manual leveling. Yeah, that's a great way to do it.
And that's a really good way of doing it. I have a few printers that don't have probes, and one, I guess, at work. And
me too. Yeah, that one
is important. So your offsets are important. So they have a really good diagram here. So your nozzle's in the center, and depending on where your probe is mounted, it's a positive number or a negative number. If it's to the left, it's a negative number. If it's to the right, it's a positive number. If it's back, it's a positive number, negative to the front.
Yep.
So if you have a stock probe position for a ender and whatnot, it's normally on the left-hand side of your extruder. But if you have some sort of custom mount, like, I don't know, you've put on a fancy blower and whatnot, and you had to mount it right at the front, it's going to change where this location is. Now, your offset, so this one has an offset of 10, 10. So 10 would be positive, so it would be on the right-hand side and the back, according to this nozzle offset. Now, mine is not like that. Mine would be like negative, 20 or something, and negative, let's say 8. I don't know, something like that.
Pretty close. Dominic has a comment here too. He says it'd be useful to rename mesh leveling to something more like bed deviation correction or compensation.
Yeah, well, yes, but they are creating a mesh of your bed. Like there is, like, literally, if you go later on when we get into Octoprint and whatnot, we can show you a visualization of what the mesh looks like. right? So it's not just a series of numbers. They actually put it into a graphical view. So it is a mesh. So, but this is important. Now, this last number you see is 0. So that number is the difference between the tip of whatever, or the tip or the detective distance from the bottom of your probe to your nozzle head. So if I drop my BL Touch pin and whatnot, it might be -3 or like 2.8 or something like that. I'm just throwing out a number there. So that means that when the difference between the nozzle tip and the tip of my probe is like 2.8 millimeters or whatever the distance is. And if you just get out your either calipers or your ruler, you can mark your nozzle center and then actually just measure to the right and measure to the left or whatever, and just get a rough. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. You can tweak it afterwards. But to start with, you set this to 0, and then that's when you would want your software and stop, or software end stops. You want to add a menu item to turn that off. So let me just show you where that is, because the ability to go past 0 when you're doing this, to be able to then go all the way down. If you want to do it from your screen, you can do it there. If you want to do it from your command line, you and in your whatever your favorite terminal is, you can do it there as well. But it's important to be able to go past 0, because we're running a negative number here. So if you don't put it in there where you can turn off software end stops, it's going to stop at 0, and then you're not going to be able to move it down. So without just adjusting your Z offset, and then it'll move it down. But software end stops, I like to do it and then slowly move it, and then look at the screen. Oh, I'm at -2.7. Okay, I can now change it to 2.7 and then save it. And I like putting it in my firmware. That way, if I make other changes, I don't have to remuck and refigure out my offset. It's hard coded in here. Some people don't do that. They leave it at 0 and then they reset it every time. And that's total personal preference. Myself, I prefer to set it in here. So I was talking software end stops, and I don't think we talked software end stops earlier before.
No.
So
this is a new topic.
Software end stops. Look at that. So software end stops, M211 allows you to turn on and off software end stops. But you should be able to, where is it in here? Is there a way to define software end stops minimum? And there should be a menu item for this.
I guess as soon as you turn this one on, it goes into the menu. In the advanced.
I don't know. I thought it was a separate menu item.
I'll look in the background here too.
Yeah.
It does work very well.
Right here.
There you go.
So if you want to be able to turn this on and off from your screen, line 1761 in my config here, so it'll be around, it's just below the software end stops. You remove the comment for define software end stop menu item, so that way you can toggle it on and off as need be, so that you can go past the 0 point of the software end stop. So very handy when you're trying to figure out what are you able to do. So for example, if you want your X to move slightly farther than on your gantry, if you turn this off, you can now move it further, and then find out, oh, I can actually go to 237 instead of 235, right? Whereas if you've hard to find your location of your gantry, and we talked about that earlier in you can now go further. And then you can then go in and then redefine your bed layout and your negative and whatnot in that. So all related to leveling, because software end stops, you need to set yours at offset, and that's the best way to do it. If you just want to do it from your console M211, you can turn your software end stops on and off with the M211 command. So you can do it from the console. You don't need a screen, but it's convenient to have it in the screen. So that's another way of doing it. So I'm going to go back to, yeah, and then that's where you could define the stuff up here. Now I'm going back to somewhere down here. Mesh leveling. There's different leveling methods. So where are where's the best spot to go here? Here we are. Okay, so under bed leveling, we've turned on the bed leveling. There's different methods here, right? We've got 3-point, we've got bed leveling linear, bilinear, and UBL. David, I think you've got one printer using UBL.
I do, yeah, just because I wanted to be stubborn.
Yeah, and I think all of mine are using bilinear.
Yeah.
And it works really well. So at this point, you can actually turn on which one. I'm going to do bilinear.
Yeah, bilinear is the most logical, by far, for people even watching the printer, and you can tell if it's doing it right. So
yeah. So we have our probe on, we have bilinear on, and if we go down here, there's a few other things you can. Do you ever define this? I think I have. Is it restore after G28?
Yeah, I have that one.
Yeah. So when you home, it restores your bed leveling. You can also have it preheat before bed leveling. Now, this is optional. I personally think you should be leveling at a proper temperature. So my typical temperature that I'm printing at is like 205 with 60, for example. So if you do this, it will heat up your bed before it does the leveling. So it's optional whether you want this on or off. Just remember, if it's off, you can level your bed cold, but when you heat it up, all those disparate surfaces are going to be at a different distance away from your nozzle. So try to always level your bed at temperature, because that way you're going to get the best results. All right, so there's a few debugging features and whatnot, which I don't always turn on. Do you have those on, David?
The debug features?
Yeah.
Not really, because I use everything through the G codes.
Yeah.
Then I don't ever really need to debug the leveling. Yeah. Usually it's the probe failed or it got knocked off, right? And then you can make sure everything's deploying properly.
And I agree with that. So and you can see some of these are both bilinear or linear. They show you different settings. Your grid points, for example, I personally like a 5x5 on an ender, but that's just me. So that's the number of points that you can do a 3x3, but I want a few more points just in case I have a weird little wow in my bed or something. I want it to more accurately kind of make the mesh to do it. So if you have a huge bed, I think my bigger bed, I think I have it 9x9 because it's such a huge bed. So this again, this is in relation to your bed size. The more points, the longer it takes to probe. So just keep aware of that. If you're probing before every print, you may want to change that. Now, to speed up probing, when it does the probing, there's couple things you can do. So in configuration advanced, for example, I'm using ABL Touch. There, you can change some settings in here. They have some advanced stuff. Software mode, depending on which BL Touch you have, you can change the mode. You can 5-volt mode and whatnot if you have an older one. BL Touch, Fort Set mode. There's a number of things in here. What I like myself is the high speed. So the high speed, what it does is normally when the BL Touch goes down, it will go down and it'll go far enough that the probe actually fully retracts, and then it'll move up a bit and then drop the probe again. What the high speed does is it probes, and then it probes till the sensor is enabled and engaged, but it doesn't pull the probe back, and then it just moves up and then moves to the next point. So you save the deploy step and whatnot. Will it save a ton of time? But it definitely, that's one of the things that I turn on if I'm using a BL Touch, for example. If you do have a BL Touch and you have if you have two independent Z steppers driving your two independent lead screws, you can do G34. We're not going to go into that today, but it's also just to be aware it's in and this can be with any probe. It doesn't have to be a BL Touch, but you can do the auto alignment where it will align your gantry to your bed. So just to be aware of that. All right, back to bed leveling. There's UBL, again, mesh points, like it has a number of different things. Mesh bed leveling, so you can actually, that's a little bit different, but again, you can define it for manually doing it if you want. And then we have the LCD. I think that covers a lot of the bed leveling. Leveling corners, and this is again with the tramming. We talked about this earlier. It goes through each of the corners, and then this one just shows you the logic of where it's going to level to, starting probe 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can actually tell it, and that's the default, but you can actually change it here to switch it. The only thing we did was we uncommented the one thing and added an extra one in the center of your bed. So that's to be aware of that. Now, the other thing you have to set is your Z safe.
I will say, well, we're finding that too. Like, we're talking a lot about probes and leveling devices, obviously, right now. If you have a probe, we often get the question, well, do I have to use it every time I print? And the answer is no, but I always follow up with, but you paid for it. so you might as well G29 and auto bed level before you print, because if you're not going to do such a thing, you might as well not have the probe.
Right.
So
typically when you have a probe, you're not going to use your end stop Z switch. Okay. So in order to do that, you're going to probe at the center of your bed. So you need to define Z safe homing here. And there is another spot you got to go to with the switch, right, David?
Yeah, you have to make sure that it's using the the correct Z end stop logic. Otherwise, it'll use the end stop, not the probe, or vice versa.
Yeah, I just got to find it here.
Just look for Z end stop, underscore end stop. I think you'll get there. Oh, it's homing. Z homing. Safe homing. Do, do, do. Finding things. Yeah, line 1280, good sir. Line 1280.
Okay.
And while he's doing that, I'm going to do this. Remember to like, share, subscribe, join our Neato Patreon, and all that kind of stuff. You can find us at 3dmakeit.ca or at Patreon at patreon.com/3dmakeit.
Yeah, so it's actually right below the other line I uncommented. Use Z probe uses. Oh, you don't want.
Yeah, so
probe for Z.
The 1280 line, if you've plugged your probe into the Z end stop switch, that's where you would use that one. If you have a special pin on your board for the probe, you don't need to use that.
So it'll depend on which board you're using.
Well, that's just it. If it has pin out for,
and you're going to
probe,
get it. You'll get an error if in your compiling when you do it. So that's the other one you need to do. So we also talked about screens and opening up different LCD menus and whatnot. Well, knowing which screen you have on your printer is going to be important. So that's the last part, because that basically covers our probing, I do believe, unless you think of something else, David, that I missed.
Nope. With the settings that you mentioned, you will successfully probe.
So there are tons and tons of screens in Marlin, right? So LCD and SD card support. So there are tons of different screens. I'm just weird. Maybe I always go and change this one to character set to Western, but I don't think I even use this display. But it's just a parent thing.
Yeah.
So if you have a Creality display, you can. It's in here too. If you have a D-Win display, so for example, the Neo and the Ender 3 V2, they have a D-Win type display. You define it in here. If you have a Creality type display, you can do it in here. If you have, there's a number of different display types. So for example, if I go D-Win,
mm-hmm.
and I go down a few to find here. So these are the D-Win displays for Ender 3 V2, also the Neo. By default, from the factory, it comes with the Creality UI. That one limits what you can do in the UI. You can't use the bed tramming and whatnot. I personally like this one here. This one makes it more like the classic Ender screen with the Marlin UI. This one here keeps it somewhat looking like the Creality screen here, but gives you more of the menus that you defined. So if you like the new style of GUI, you can change it here. Now, if you have one of these Neos or D-Wins or whatnot, the newer Neos, you cannot reflash the screen firmware to the newer looking graphics. So there are files available in your Marlin folder that you can flash the screen so that you get the graphics for the Marlin UI and has nice, it says Marlin on the top, and it has nice little icons for the fan animation spinning and whatnot. Yeah, you don't get that if you don't flash the screens, but the Neo isn't compatible with that yet. They haven't figured out how to add the icon set. So if you have the Ender 3 V2, you can flash a screen and get that going on that. So just to be aware of that. Again, I prefer this one. Now, if you have just a regular Ender, you'd want to go to the reality. Gotta find it. Or it's called CR10, isn't it, David? CR10 screen. Yeah, stock display. So you could go down here and define the CR10 stock display. So if you don't have that one, you would comment it out, for example. If you have an Ender 3, you would turn this one on, and this allows the single cable connection from your stock board, for example, to the screen. If you have a Big Tree Tech board, for example, and you have the D-Win screen, you have to re-pin out your connector. So that's a more advanced thing. We're not going to cover how the pinout is, but it will warn you when you go to compile it if you have the newer Big Tree Tech and E3 V3. That one you have to actually readjust the ribbon cable so that it will be compatible with the screen and that board. But if you have a standard Ender 3 screen, the classic looking one, that one is just this one here, and it will work fine. So just keep that in mind. Other than that, David, I think if we go back to our little
the
diagram and check. So we talked about ABL, we talked about screens, we talked about some advanced BL touch.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have come to the end of our Marlin, and we can take some questions today if you've got any questions.
Yeah, there's the checklist up on the screen, and it's complete.
And we will share this checklist out with our Patreons on Discord. So,
yep.
If you want to this checklist, it's really handy just to make sure that you've configured all the basics in your config. Again, are there more things you can do inside Marlin beyond this? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Are these some of the minimums you need to do to get a successful firmware going? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in mind that you're not limited to this list, but this will get you going really good.
Yeah.
And we talked about baby stepping, did we not?
Yep. Well, we talked about it. We didn't enable it.
Yeah. So baby stepping is easily enabled in your firmware. Like it's
just go in and do it.
Yeah, you just literally, if you type in baby.
Yeah, I'll go back to your screen share so you can show that.
Sure.
Greg will show baby stepping.
So as you can see it talks about it in your config, but if you want to turn it on, you actually have to go to your configuration advanced. So you have to just make sure that it is not commented out here. In this step, it was not commented out. Some people I personally like this. Is if you double click your knob on your printer, it pops up baby stepping. Again, that's just a quick thing. So in this example config, it was already enabled. But if you did have it commented out, just remove the two comment flashes, and now you're enabled. So that's it. There are some more advanced little tweaks you can do in here, but the biggest thing I do is I turn on the double click for baby stepping. But other than that, that's the only other thing that I would recommend to turn on for you guys.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really it took us a few hours here, 5, which honestly is pretty close to what our workshops are. when we
Yeah.
talk
So
about firmware. So I mean,
yeah.
it's a lot of information. And now next week is going to be Patreon, but we're going to move into Clipper next. And then once we finish the Clipper kind of live stream series, we will take it offline, and then we're gonna do like um, a, a Patreon workshop on what we have just
Gone through here.
gone through here. So we're gonna take it and we can pick a printer that you guys have, and then
Yep.
we can make the firmware for it. So again, thanks for joining the last 5 ones here. They've
Yep.
been interesting
Ho-
to share the
hopefully,
least.
hopefully you guys have got something out of the series of live streams going over this. If you did, put it in the comments. Let us know if it was helpful to you.
Yeah.
If you want to see more of this kind of stuff in the future, we'll
Mhm.
make sure that we do some more of these. I think we both really enjoyed kind of sharing this with you. This is the kind of thing, like David said, that we do at our workshops when we do
You
workshops.
said do.
this.
But yes, do like, share, subscribe, of course. Ray just mentioned
Stig
it.
did
So
comment that the first thing he turns on is baby stepping with the double click. and you're not wrong. Like it's such a handy thing. Why it's not on by default in most printers, I don't know.
it's yeah, like it's one of those things that too lots of people think it's like, oh well, that's just for a pro. Wow, no, you can do it with your regular printer too in case something changed. If
Stig, you don't need Clipper on the E3 Neo. You can just run it stock. You don't need Clipper at all. But if you're getting a Neo and you want to follow along with Clipper, yeah, you just need the printer, and then we can go through it.
Yeah. Now, Dominic asks, is it hard to go back and forth between Marlin and Clipper? And the answer is no. It's really easy.
No, it's literally, if you have your two flashes, so you have one flash with Clipper on it, just to get the firmware, so it talks to your Pi, and then you have another one with your stock Marlin on it that you like to use. You can easily go back and forth. It's just literally, because on the board side of things, the difference is the firmware on Clipper is just basically opening up all of the board connectors and steppers and sensors and everything directly to your Pi. And so it's just it just gives you kind of a generic, you know which board you have. It does a generic dump of all of the pins and in relation to your board to the Pi. And then your configuration is done on the Pi itself, and we're going to go into that in the next series.
Stig asks, I want to test it, but I don't have a Pi. Well, unfortunately, that's a bit of a problem with Clipper. Because you require you don't need a Pi per se, but you do need a single board computer.
I'm sorry, my dogs are going crazy here. I apologize if you can hear that.
If we can hear it, we can hear it. It's loud and clear. But it happens.
I will mute myself.
So the Clipper does require a single board computer, but you don't have to use a Pi. And like I mentioned before at the beginning of the stream, and we'll throw it out there now, we will be doing a breakdown of a few different alternatives to Raspberry Pi since they're hard to get. We have reached out to a few different manufacturers, some of which have got back and some haven't. I think we'll probably do the sessions with a La Potato, which is it's kind of like between a Raspberry Pi 3 and 4, and then we'll pick a few other ones as well as we go. So if you do have ideas, like specifically you're like, well, I saw this one and it looked pretty good, and
And if you have one, you want to
Throw
send
it
it to
into
us, and then we
Discord
can send
or
it back. We can
yeah.
do that too.
We-
We don't have unlimited funds to buy one of everything. We're hoping
Well,
that some of
Greg
these.
does. He's independently wealthy. Um,
No, no, you're the one without kids.
oh.
You're independently well.
Hey, now I don't know if that's the case.
That's how it works,
I'll
isn't
have to
it?
check the bank account to see if that lines up.
But yeah, so I have reached out to a few vendors. I'm in talks with a couple. They were checking out our YouTube channel
Yeah,
and seeing if they think that it's something that they would like to partner with to send us some pies alternatives.
yeah.
I'm not going to mention the companies because I don't know if
We
they're
don't know
even
if we're
interested.
working with them. So
Yeah,
here's the thing. You can run the fluid and mainsail and the octoprints in Dockers as well on computers, and you guys are asking right now, so you can do it. The
yeah,
reason most people say Pi is because they're cheap.
and they have the breakout headers, so you're not
It's
going to
true.
have to remap other
Yeah.
things. So, for example, if you want to do
Well, the accelerometer requires
accelerometer,
the
right? You need the
GPIO
break.
ports, right?
Yeah, you need the
So,
pins,
like,
and so
there
yeah.
is reasons that you should use a Pi, because otherwise, if you didn't use a Pi, you could use a computer, but then you're gonna buy something that has like more pinout for the computer, which will turn into a Arduino, and then it's like, wait, why didn't I just buy a Pi?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so it's yeah, yes you can, but it probably isn't the best. So
but like I said, if you guys could pop in suggestions of, like, I know Dominic already sent a little board out. We do have some Pi 2 zeros or Pi 02, however I forget the order of the,
and
so
Dave
we'll
and
do
I have
yeah
actual Pi 4s and Pi. So we actually we bought them prior to the collapse of the Pi market.
this is
and
gonna
being
make
able
you
to-
sick. I own 7 Raspberry Pis.
I own one.
8
two,
Raspberry Pis
three,
actually.
4. I own at least 5.
And 3 of them are 4s, and then the rest of them are Raspberry Pi 3. And then I have that goofy one. What was that goofy one we bought? It was like a Raspberry Pi 3A. And it was so it's Raspberry Pi 3, but it has less in and out
Less
on it.
I/O, and then you have
Yeah.
to actually. I don't even know where my Raspberry Pi 2.
I don't know
is.
what you're looking for.
I'm looking for the Raspberry Pi 2.
Oh, I don't have that one here. The 2W, just so you guys know as we're talking about it, is a Raspberry Pi 3, but they shrunk. They basically made it the same size as the Raspberry Pi Zero, which is, if you're in the Discord, is the same size as the Mango Pi. That
I have the case for it.
yeah, case. And it's, so the Mango Pi kind of matches that form factor of the two. So if you're in our Discord, Dominic posted a Mango Pi Zero. Now I will say the original Raspberry Pi Zero sucked for most things,
Yeah,
including
get the 2.
Yeah, so if you're looking and you're like, wow, this is a really good deal, Raspberry Pi with a 0 1, no, don't do it. Get the 2.
I think the 2 basically uses the same chip as the 3B plus or whatever.
So stick
doesn't
it. It sounds like you got all the hardware lying around. It's just when we go through it, you're going to have to do a little more work because you have to map the GPIO pins, and then of course if you're using Docker, and not just like a straight up like actual like in the OS itself building the instance for a Clipper, you're going to have to make sure that like all of the ports for the serial connections get forwarded through to the Docker. Not hard, just you're gonna have to do it.
It's going to be more work. You're gonna be jumping through hoops that we may or may not be able to help you easily with.
Yes. Hey, my eyes didn't disappear this week, guys. Last week the green in my eyes matched the color, so I had a hollow eyes. It was weird. Every week it gets better. Audio works sometimes.
Yay.
Video works most of the times. But I think we'll wrap it up there because it's almost time to eat something and breakfast here. So we'll talk more about Clipper after the Patreon stream. And heck, if you guys want to talk during the Patreon stream about it, that's what we'll do too. We'll send the link out for the Patreon stream. I'll push the button and then do this really quick. Just thank you, everybody on this list again. Hal's at the top there, but all of you are very important to us, and you help keep the website going and a few other projects on the roll. So we sure appreciate you. If you want to join us, it's patreon.com/3dmakeit, and you can get in on the Discord and the Patreon live streams. We might try using Discord this week for the Patreon live stream and then rebroadcasting it just to see.
We'll see if that even works.
Yeah, it's
We're hoping.
fingers crossed, but we'll see what happens. But yes, until next time, we will see you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.